Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogans. As we move toward the end of the year, I always find that I'm ready to reflect on what did and didn't work over the last year. I also find that I get really excited about planning what's going to happen in the upcoming year. You start thinking about all of the new and amazing things you want to try, the cool projects you want to do, incredible things that you want your students to experience. Now, Andrew and I have talked about how we rotate projects in and out like crazy, always trying new things, new ideas, new projects, and I know that's not for everybody. But I do think it's worth your time to think about what you were doing. And more importantly, much more importantly, it's worth asking yourself why you are teaching the lessons that you do or the projects that you do. In fact, I think that's a good litmus test for seeing if your projects need to stay in your curriculum. When the question comes up about what students learn from the project or why you teach it, if you can't answer why almost immediately, it might be time to move on. It might be time to find a better project to take its place. And for me, I think a lot of these are your most basic projects. There seems to be this pervasive line of thinking that kids will never be able to draw realistically without doing 17 different 10-point value scales first, or that they'll never learn anything if they don't memorize the elements and principles before all of their other art learning. And obviously, that's a little bit of hyperbole on my part, but I think it really is a problem. Like rote memorization and boring skill building and teaching drawing techniques that are just about the techniques, nothing more, those things aren't good. They aren't good for your students. They definitely aren't interesting for your students. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say they probably aren't that interesting for you when it's time to present those ideas to your class. So I want you to have an open mind here as you listen to this discussion. Give us a chance to convince you that there may be a thing or two that can be dropped from your curriculum. And it can maybe even be dropped without causing irreparable harm to your students' future in art. So let me bring on Andrew, and we will talk about these 7 projects that it's okay for you to quit teaching. All right, Andrew, hello, how are you?
Hey man, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I am doing really well. It is time for us to talk about the projects that it's okay to abandon, because I feel like we're getting toward the end of the year. Are you feeling the drag of the end of the year right now?
It's kind of a drag. It's more of just like, I would say it's more of a squeeze. I'm feeling
okay.
I've got 12 days left. What do I still want to do? What do I have to get done? And I have the really fun task of I'm moving buildings at the end of the year. So I have to,
man.
Yeah, so school's out on Friday, and Monday the wrecking crew comes in. So I have to teach up until Friday on June 2nd. And then, whatever that Monday is, building's locked, and it's a hard hat construction zone. So I got 3 days to pack up my mess of an art room.
I am not envious of you at all. But I will say this. I said in the intro, though, that, now is the perfect time to, kind of reflect on what you've done this year and start thinking about next year, what you want to change. And so I think it's a really good time for us to kind of discuss the projects that it's okay to let go, the ones that it's okay to quit teaching. So I'm going to hit you up with my first idea for this one and see what you think. I really want to tell everybody out there that it's okay for you to quit teaching perspective drawing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I might shock you here a little bit. People who are diehard fans of this podcast could probably guess or bet on like which projects we're going to make fun of and poke fun of. And no, tie-dye did not make the list, but perspective drawing is one that we've both kind of maligned and said, how important is it? It's this thing that we always feel we got to teach. I've never heard very few people ever say they're excited about teaching it. But, okay, I'm going to shock you. I've been letting it go for 7-8 years. I haven't taught it in a long time. I've had so many kids this last year where I talked to them about drawing a cube and they are completely clueless, and I show them a couple different strategies. I had one kid just flat out drop an F-bomb in front of me as I showed him how to make a three-dimensional cube. He said, "Shut the front door," but he did not say shut the front door. So then I realized, man, maybe I need to start teaching perspective drawing again, because some of my students were they were kind of clueless on it. So I don't know. I still don't like teaching it, and it is at the bottom of my list. Because here's the thing. When was the last time I ever laid out a drawing and had like, here are my vanishing points, here's my horizon line? I don't do that. I just draw from observation, and I think that's so much more important to teach.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the question I always ask myself is like, what is the benefit of teaching perspective drawing? Like, what do kids get out of it? And for the amount of time that you put into it, like if you do 1 point perspective and then 2 point perspective, like just think of how much time you're putting into that, and like, what's the payoff? What do kids get out of it? And, you know, the second part of that is, you know, like, I don't know that it's really worthwhile for them to come up with any perspective projects. Like, what do you do for perspective that's really exciting? Like, you do your city scene, maybe you do your dream house in 2 point perspective. And I swear to God, I've seen both of those projects a million times, and I don't see anybody like really going beyond those ideas. And then third thing, and I'm ranting like you at this point, but you know, I heard Ian Sands say this once upon a time. He was talking about how he learned perspective drawing in high school and then never dealt with it again until it was time for him to teach perspective drawing to high school kids. Like, you really can go through an entire art career without ever using perspective. And so I don't see the point of dedicating weeks and weeks to it when it's something that you can do, like you said, just one-on-one with your kids. Show them a little bit how it works, you know, give them the basics, and that should be enough for them to go on. I don't think you need to dive into amazing detail on this and spend just an inordinate amount of time on it.
Yep, I totally agree, and I think that quote from Ian, that's a really great quote, and I think for so many art teachers it rings true. But so I want to switch things up, because we're really picking on those people who like perspective drawings. I know there's a couple people out there. I am guilty of this next one. You know, we're talking projects it's okay to quit.
Yeah.
I think I do a still life drawing every 9th grade art class every year, and it's always awful. My students always hate it. I always say to myself, why the heck am I doing this? So I think we got to quit these like just drab still life drawings. We could let that go.
Yes. Yeah. You know, those 3 questions that you ask yourself, like, what are kids getting out of it? Why am I teaching this? Like, that's a great sign that it's okay to move on. And so let me ask you this, like, yes, there are some good skills that can be learned about how, you know, light hits objects, how reflections work, how shadows work. And those are ideas that can transfer. And yes, it can be worthwhile. But, you know, if kids are hating it, still probably not worth it. So anyway, let me ask you this. Like, if you find a project that you are ready to quit teaching, do you A, abandon it completely, or B, try and sort of rethink it and come back with a better version or a more exciting version?
Yeah, totally the second one. I mean, before I send it off, you know, because there had to have been some reason why you wanted to teach it in the first place, or why you thought it was valuable, right? I mean, no one is, I think, hopefully, especially if you've been teaching a while, we're not holding on to projects that we just absolutely hate. I mean, we always think that there's something worth doing in there. So before I totally, you know, lose all hope in it, I'll try to really turn it upside down on its head, or do something different, or do it in a different order or a different material, see if I can get some better results out of it. You know, and if I can't get this baby to work on the second or third try, I mean, maybe it's just got to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. So cool. All right. I'm ready to move on to number 3 here. The project that I really dislike teaching more than anything, and one that my kids hate when we get into ceramics, is pinch pots. Okay, so I think it's okay to quit teaching pinch pots. Like, it's another one of those skills that can be taught really quickly, and then maybe it'll be used again, maybe it won't, but you don't need to spend, a week and a half creating pinch pots and then suffer through the firing and the glazing with kids mumbling the whole time and moping around because they hate how it looks. They hate the whole process of creating pinch pots. And then you end up with a bunch of wasted clay and a bunch of wasted glaze that is not exciting for anyone. There's no good projects. Kids don't really learn that much. And so I am ready to let pinch pots go. How are you feeling about that one?
I like that one just a little bit more. And again, I think, people know that we're all about context, and your students better than anyone else. And if it's a skill that they are lacking, then by all means you should do it. Or also, if you have a way to get it done quickly and painlessly, then maybe the payoff is worth it. So I actually just recently this year, I didn't really do a pinch pot project per se. Boy, say that 3 times fast. But I did demonstrate how to take 2 very simple pinch pots, combine them into basically a giant sphere, and then cut the lid off, or a piece of it off, and have that serve as a lid. Because I had so many students just completely flummoxed on how to make sort of like some basic hollow shapes in ceramics. And I did have to kind of say, this is going back to elementary school. And I was teaching 9th graders at the time. You just make a pinch pot. And so many kids were kind of like, what's that? And then I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So I had to show it to them and then show them how they could attach it. So I think if you're going to, but that was like a 5-minute demo in the service of a bigger project. I mean, I think that's maybe one of the things. It's we might need to differentiate as teachers out there, what is a project and what is a demo? I mean, can you do a pinch pot demo in 5 minutes? Can you do a 2 points perspective demo for 5 minutes that then serves a bigger, more powerful goal? Then by all means. But no one's excited about, hey, it's our pinch pot project. I mean, I don't know. You really got to jazz that up to sell it to your kids, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on a lot of good points. If it's something that can be taught in 5 or 10 minutes, teach it in 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a project on its own. Okay, but if you can show them that skill, and then like you said with the spheres, show them how it can be used in service of something bigger, something better, that's the way it should be taught. And so I think that's an idea to keep in mind as we go throughout all of these ideas here. But your turn. What do you got next for me?
Well, I know there's some people who are going to think I'm crazy, but I don't think I've ever done a lesson plan on the color wheel. I think, I think, again, it's a good thing to know. It is a great poster to have in your room. I mean, if we look at it on its face value, it is just a theory, and we could all have a different theory on what color combinations look good together. But to base a whole project on recreating a wheel in a fun and interesting way with the different color schemes, I mean, that's a hard sell to kids too. And I think so many art teachers are guilty of doing it right out the gate. First project of the year, first project of the semester, color wheel time. Oh boy! And I just think oftentimes I think it lands pretty flat.
Yep, just what I was going to say. I have taught color wheel projects repeatedly, and I never, ever had a kid go, oh, that was awesome, or, oh, this is so exciting. It is a drag, and there's so much better ways to learn that information. Just let your kids experiment with color. Let them try out their own things. Let them mix their own colors. Let them name their own colors. They don't need to copy this circle of 12 and memorize, the difference between secondary and tertiary, and that stuff in the grand scheme of things, not super important. If you're going to art school, yeah, sure, it works. But for 99% of our kids, they're not going to get a lot out of that. And I agree with you. So I'm good dropping the color wheel as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to clay again. As much as I hate pinch pots, I feel like I hate coil pots even more. So let me explain.
Yeah, I was just going to say, man, I feel that we're growing apart. I don't know if I even know you anymore, because you're gonna have to convince me, because I kind of like coil pots. I think it depends on how kids kind of take it, though.
Okay, so here's my questions for you, and they're kind of rhetorical at this point. You don't have to answer them. But number one, how long does it take you to teach a kid to make a coil? How long does it take you to show them to attach them? How long does any of that process really take? And then, once they've figured that out, do you really need them to spend weeks like building a coil pot? Because it is a time consuming process. And then secondly, if you are going to spend weeks, what are you doing to make it a cool project? I mean, yeah, you can alter it, and maybe some of the coils go up and down and some of them go in spirals and things like that. But if you're not moving beyond that, like, is that really worth 3 weeks of your semester? I'm not seeing it. So I don't know. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Boy, I'm a pushover. I actually think you're right. I mean, so I have never really done a coil pot project for the sake of coil pots. I teach how to make, attach and, taper in or flare out coils in the service of a bigger project. So usually I do a face jug project where we look at the history of face jugs.
Yeah.
Or I'll do like a monster mug, or I'll do a critter mug. So just kind of basic, like here's how to make kind of a jug or cup shape. But then the real payoff and the creativity is in the face and the sculpture on the outside. But yeah, the gotta make it 12 inches tall and it has to have this direction and this direction. I think it's a little formal for me. So I've never been a huge fan of those.
Yeah, and I mean they do have their time and place, I suppose, but I feel like we can do a lot better. And just even the examples you mentioned right there, I think are a good way to show how you can move beyond just the absolute basic ideas there. So, all right, you're up next. What do you got for me?
It's been a while since I've even done this, and it's hard for me to even wrap my brain around kind of these. So maybe you'll explain kind of where people come from when they do these, but any project that is just kind of like a nuts and bolts description of an element of art or a principle of design.
Yes.
Here's an example of texture, and it's almost more like journal entries or a poster. It's almost like kind of scrapbooking.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I've ever done even close to that is sometimes I use the elements of art as like a prompt for ATCs, but I tell them like it has to be like a really abstract interpretation of these words. But I don't know. I guess I'm a little past the elements of art as like an end all be all like goal of what you're teaching. But
yeah, same. And I think, this was actually going to be on my list before you just stole it from me. But, I think my first year of teaching, I was like, oh, my kids have to know the elements of art. Like, let's make posters. And one kid's like, line. Here's a definition of line. Here's a drawing of a line. And we spent like 3 days on that. And my kids didn't remember it afterwards. I'm like, what was the point of this? And yeah, I don't think that, we've talked about this before, but the elements and principles are generally not what you're going to base most of your curriculum around. And, you can, but I feel like there are more exciting ways to do things. And I feel like you can just hit on the elements and principles here and there. And there's no reason to stop everything or to not go on to something else until your kids have these things memorized. Like, I don't see how that serves students all that well. So I'm with you. I'm good on dropping anything that spends too much time defining the elements of art.
Well, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these. That's the problem with the color wheel. That's the problem with, even perspective drawing. It's like, what are they teaching necessarily other than this sort of like abstract design art element? It's like, there's got to be more to that to hold students' attention,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're just operating at the most basic level when you're teaching those things. And I think it's worthwhile to think about how you can move past that and move beyond that to see how those ideas can be used in other places and not just teach the ideas themselves, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. All right. I know we need to get out of here, but one last one that I want to hit on. I am so tired of seeing Claude Monet's water lilies being copied. Like, yes, it's adorable, it's cute, but like, I don't need 30 of Van Gogh's Starry Night sitting out there. I don't need 30 of the same of anything or any art history copies, because I feel like you're just absolutely squashing kids' creativity. Like, you need to let them have their own take on things. Yeah, it's awesome to look at artists. Yes, it's great to learn about art history. Yes, you can do some amazing things, but you don't need to have them copying their work directly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that must have been something, a weird byproduct of discipline-based art education back in the day. Like, I don't think it was a deliberate thing. I think a lot of teachers maybe heard, well, one of the big tenets has to be art history. Oh my gosh, we have to make our students kind of look at master works and reinterpret it really similarly. I don't know. I think there is a push now to get further and further away from that, or, you know, have students look at master work, but then interpret it in a very unique and personal, meaningful way. So I totally hear you, man. I agree with you. I think the work's got to be meaningful, and I think it's a balancing act, though. I mean, there's some kids who like having that sort of recipe or formula for you do this, you do this, you do this. Presto, you've got a knockoff. Whereas if you let them have maybe too much freedom and they feel like they're kind of floundering a little bit, and maybe this gets into the false divide of like creativity versus like feeling competent and masterful. I don't know. Here I go ranting again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I think you make some really good points, and those are some of the same things that I was going to say, and so I think we're very much on the same page there. So cool. All right, but with that, I think we'll wrap it up. So Andrew, thank you very much for joining me, and it's been a good discussion. So thanks.
All right. Yep. Thanks, man.
There you have it. The 7 projects that it's okay to quit teaching. Seriously, Andrew and I are giving you express permission to move on from those projects. If you want to keep teaching them, more power to you. But I think there are ways to move on from those simple baseline projects and get your students doing bigger and better things. And now that our discussion has destroyed your entire curriculum, it's time to build a new one, which is why AOE's Designing Your Curriculum course is the perfect graduate course for this summer. I say that part about destroying and rebuilding your curriculum facetiously, but in all seriousness, this is a great course if you're looking for new and better ideas to improve your curriculum. You not only learn about the why when it comes to curriculum, but you learn and talk about the how to develop new ideas, engage your students, and come up with amazing new projects that work together to enhance your curriculum and what you're doing in the art room. There are new sections of the course beginning in June, July, and August. Go to theartofed.com/courses to check it out. Anyway, as we wrap things up, I want to emphasize that Andrew and I are in no way criticizing you for teaching these projects. Every teacher does things differently, and we absolutely understand that. In fact, you heard us disagree on some of the ideas just between the two of us. What we really want to do is help you reflect and help you think about why you are teaching what you teach. Like me with perspective drawing, I kind of let it slide without really thinking about why I didn't enjoy teaching on it. But after reflecting on the idea and listening to some other opinions, I was able to really clarify my thinking. I realized the way I was teaching it didn't work for me personally, and I wasn't getting the outcomes I wanted for my students. So I reset, found other ways and times to teach the concept, and I was so much happier with how that was presented in my classroom. And I hope that this discussion is able to do that for you, because sometimes hearing some other opinions can help you with your own thinking. And if you have a clear vision for what you want to teach and why you want to teach it, that's when you and your students will be at your best. Art Ed Radio is produced by The Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Remember that you can sign up for our email list at artedradio.com. Also, I want to remind you that you can always email Andrew and me at radioguys@theartofed.com. We love hearing your feedback, positive or negative, and it always helps us improve the show. Thank you for listening.